including that the Attorney General's ability to appoint a special counsel with the authority of the U.S. Attorney is akin to the power to appoint a shadow government. She said, a shadow government? You wrote that in your motion. Well, that sounds very ominous. Neither the Constitution nor Congress have ever created the office of the special counsel. The appointment is invalid. So if they admit that Jack Smith is not under Merrick Garland, and Garland did not sign off on this, then they've created this whole new whoa, he's not working for mayor. Well, who's he working for? Special counsel? Where does that come from? Now, we know America First Legal is a nonprofit organization out there fighting for our First Amendment liberties, among other things. And so they are submitting this on behalf of Trump. Judge Cannon, in the classified documents case, grills Jack Smith and his team. We were there for a hearing about Jack Smith's illegal appointment. As we've talked about here a long time, Jack Smith was not appointed by the president. He was not confirmed by the Senate. He's not a U.S. attorney like other special counsels were. And so he just kind of got pulled into this whole thing from who knows where. And then he got a bunch of government money from essentially a slush fund that the DOJ has set aside with no caps or limits. And we have questions about the appropriations clause as well. So Jack illegally appointed because he was not actually appointed, and he's got illegal money because of the illegal appropriation. So two big fat A words there that mean Jack Smith is illegal in the judiciary, violating the border of appointments and appropriations. And so we're going to go through what happened today. As we know, no technology inside the courtroom, no live tweets, no audio, no video, nothing we can really peer into until we get the transcripts. But let's see what the news had for us, telling us they were reporting after the fact, assembling all this stuff. They are reporting, telling us that the judge, you know who she is, Eileen Cannon, seen here presiding over the classified documents case. They tried to throw her off there. That Bush appointee said, "You're a little too experienced here. Why don't you let me handle this?" And she said, "Get out of here. I'm handling this case. I got appointment. Back off." So here they tell us that District Judge Eileen Cannon held a hearing on Friday, that's today, to hear arguments about a motion to dismiss from Trump, saying that Jack Smith's appointment was illegal. Now, when we were inside the courtroom, the report tells us, Trump's lawyers argued that an officer like Jack Smith must be appointed by law. Got to have some power behind the appointment, and that the special counsel should be categorized as a principal officer and subject to Senate confirmation, because Jack Smith can just go around the country, gather evidence, do whatever he wants, act like a full U.S. attorney. He can prosecute crimes. So he's acting as somebody with tremendous power. So that power needs to emanate from somewhere. Usually that's the law. Where does the law get its power? The Constitution. The statutory text that's cited by Jack Smith's office, they say does not authorize his appointment, says Trump's lawyer, Emil Beauvais. Because remember what Jack Smith said, what Merrick Garland said, is they use these things called the Reno regulations that just gobble together a bunch of statutes that are really irrelevant to anything. And then they say, well, we can infer that there's a little power here that we have because this says we can have a little power over here and a little over here. And so because we have these little things, we can smash those little things together and it gives us like this brand new power. That means we can just go appoint Jack Smith, who apparently the most powerful man in the country because he can prosecute former presidents and he's only kind of subject to Merrick Garland, maybe a little bit, but not really. So here Cannon apparently appeared skeptical of some of Trump's defense arguments, including that the Attorney General's ability to appoint a special counsel with the authority of the U.S. Attorney is akin to the power to appoint a shadow government. She said, a shadow government? You wrote that in your motion. Well, that sounds very ominous, said the judge. A shadow government, huh? Well, what does that mean, says Cannon. Now, Bove said, Your Honor, it's pretty simple. That would result from the Attorney General just being able to appoint people with law enforcement power, but there's no oversight. There is the law, the statutes that say these offices are allowed and you can fill those offices. And how do you fill them? By presidential appointment, Senate confirmation, and then they can hire their employees. But the reason we have that process is so we have oversight of those people because U.S. attorneys have tremendous power. And if Merrick Garland doesn't have to do that, if he can just assign somebody to just go prosecute a bunch of people for whatever he wants without appointment and approval from the Senate, then there is no oversight. He bypasses that whole process. He can do that unilaterally whenever he wants. And Cannon said, well, is that really a realistic risk when you have, well-defined statutes regarding the Attorney General's appointment authority? And clearly, we do not have well-defined statutes because they're cobbling together the Reno regulations, which is like 7 or 8 different U.S. codes, to create this power. Now, Cannon also asked about the history of the use of special counsels and independent counsels, which no longer exist anymore because Congress let that expire, and special prosecutors. She went all the way back to the 1800s. Now, speaking for Jack's office, Jack Smith and Jay Bratt, James Pierce, he disputed the notion that the appointment of Jack violates the Constitution. He says, Your Honor, their arguments disregard precedent here, and if you get rid of Jack Smith, Your Honor, there would be pernicious consequences. Like, yeah, your stolen power that's completely illegitimate would not be yours anymore. So you'd have to dismiss this case. And the prosecutor says, no. And Your Honor, by the way, this was already resolved in U.S. versus Nixon anyway. anyways. The Watergate era case where the Supreme Court found that Nixon had to release audio recordings and other evidence related to the scandal. He said, Your Honor, in the Nixon case, the court found that the Attorney General had the authority to appoint a special counsel with the power to investigate independently. That's not exactly right, okay? The court didn't find that. They just didn't address it. It wasn't challenged. They just said, okay, well, I guess we'll deal with it since we're here. But neither party was contesting the appointment of a special counsel in that case. Trump's defense has already brought that up. I said, okay, like they handled the Nixon case that did have a special counsel, but nobody was challenging that. Well, we're challenging it here. What's the basis for the power? Prosecutor responded to Emil Bove's attempts to draw a distinction between officials and officers. Says, Your Honor, there's no difference between official or officers, nothing like that. The government says official is a catch-all term. It means anything we want it to mean. You know, officers and employees. It's just kind of everything. Government said, and there's historical precedent for this too, by the way. We've had many other special counsels that have been appointed by other people. For example, he says President Ulysses S. Grant and Teddy Roosevelt, they had independent special counsels before noting that Congress had long approved of the practice of appointing independent special counsels. Yeah, again, nobody's contesting that. Like, you can do that. That's fine. You can do it. No problem. You just have to do it. The right mechanisms need to be in place in order to get that done. 3 outside parties that had also filed briefs were also presenting arguments in court today. Toward the end of the hearing, Cannon asked the prosecution several questions, including, all right, government, did the Attorney General have any oversight role in seeking the indictment? Great question. What is Cannon trying to do there? Pin them down. Did Merrick Garland have anything to do with this indictment? Government said, well, Your Honor, it's a matter of policy. We can't talk about that. We can't talk about our charging decisions as a matter of policy. They came prepared. Well, then Cannon said, well, okay, if you're not willing to answer that question, tell me why there would be any heartburn in answering whether Attorney General Garland signed off on the indictment in the classified documents case, regardless of policy. Why there would be any heartburn? Why is that a problem if you just tell us? You just tell us. If Garland signed off on it, then that means, right, that Jack is subordinate to Garland. This is what we're trying to figure out. Is Jack subordinate to Garland, or is Jack like even more powerful than Garland? Did Garland have to sign off on it, or is Jack like totally independent of Garland? Because I think the theory would be that Jack is under Garland and Garland is monitoring him, so he doesn't need to be appointed. He's just kind of like this special employee who doesn't need appointment and appropriations. But wait a minute, if Garland didn't sign off on it, then he really is kind of like this extra office that's not built into by the law, and he has total charging power. It's really, wow. So did he or did he not? Can you tell us? No, I can't. Policy. Well, how about in Florida, classified documents case? How about maybe in the J6 case even? But she says, okay, so you're not even going to tell us? He says, Your Honor, I don't want it to seem like I'm hiding anything, but it would be against my policy to answer that specific question. They can't answer that question because if they say Merrick Garland signed off on it, then you say, oh, great. So this is a political hack job. All right. So Garland works for Biden. Garland signed off on the prosecution. So now Biden is prosecuting Trump. Got it. They can't answer that. And if they say that, no, there is no political oversight, there's really no oversight of this, then, oh, they're caught even worse because now they've created this extra position of Jack Smith's special counsel office that is not under Merrick Garland. So where the hell did that come from? Where does that power emanate from? Now they have to justify that. So they don't want to say that either because there is no independent counsel provision anymore, right? That all expired. And now they're cobbling together these other provisions to try to say Jack has the power. We call those the Reno regulations. Before court adjourned, Cannon asked prosecutors and the defense to file any supplemental materials, including any statutory citations and case law, 5 pages max, did not issue a ruling. Now, Garland appointed Smith, for some backstory here, as special counsel November 22, tasked him with overseeing federal investigations. The hearing on Friday dealt with a motion Trump's lawyers filed here. We've already talked about it. We've heard him file it, Ed Meese, many times here. Does not permit the Attorney General to appoint a special counsel without Senate confirmation. A private citizen and like-minded political ally to wield this prosecutorial power. Jack lacks authority to prosecute this case. Because neither the Constitution nor Congress have ever created the office of the special counsel, the appointment is invalid, right? So if they admit that Jack Smith is not under Merrick Garland and Garland did not sign off on this, then they've created this whole new, whoa, he's not working for mayor. Well, who's he working for? Special counsel? Where does that come from? There is no law. They further argue that the funding also violates the appropriations. They say Biden's DOJ is paying for this off the books, right? It's a slush fund without any accountability or authorization. It's limitless, as much money as you want. Rather than funding the special counsel's office through the ordinary budget process, Jack Smith is drawing on a permanent, indefinite appropriation. It's not even available to the special counsel. It's under the Reno regulations, not even available to them. So Jack Smith's money is also illegal. Now, they say the court should also dismiss the superseding indictment against Trump and the other co-defendants. Jack Smith said no. The Attorney General does have statutory authority to appoint inferior officers, right? So did Jack Smith sign off on? Did Garland sign off on this because he's inferior under under the officer of Garland, and that previous court decisions say we can appoint special counsels. Not really. They didn't really challenge it. Now, the arguments by Trump's legal team have been raised unsuccessfully against previously special counsels like Robert Mueller and David Weiss, who were both previous U.S. attorneys. David Weiss is a U.S. attorney, already appointed and confirmed. So was Robert Mueller previously. Now, Friday's court proceedings was the first of 3 consecutive hearings that Cannon is holding. Others are set for Monday and Tuesday. Let's go. And a previous trial date was canceled in the case. No future one has been set. They're very upset about that. The hearing comes a few weeks after the hush money case, the fake bragg prosecution, and Trump was convicted in that case, as we saw. Now, here's a little bit more. Let's see what CNN reports for us, see if anything is different here. It says Cannon also appeared skeptical about Jack Smith's appointment arguments, but she also displayed some common distrust of the prosecutors. Trump's arguing Jack Smith is unlawful, saying that no, he couldn't have appointed somebody who is like Jack. And they say no, he is inferior. Cannon was prepared with questions talking about the shadow government, very ominous. New York Times reported previously, we talked about this yesterday, that 2 other judges tried to, I would say, unethically pressure Cannon to give up this case. Are you sure you can handle this, Cannon? Why don't you give it to me so I can just make it go my way, just like Judge Merchan. Prosecutor James Pierce, during the arguments, said that Garland could this very moment fire Smith. So now we're getting into this. Says, well, Your Honor, we're following all the rules of special counsels. And says, well, has there been any actual oversight? We're trying to distinguish. Does Garland actually oversee Jack or not? Does he? He says, yes, Your Honor, there has, but I decline to give you any details about the internal deliberations of the DOJ. Cannon says, come on, I need to know. Like, we're trying to decide what is Jack Smith's role. Does he have a boss or not? Says, it sounds like to me you're experiencing heartburn over the question of whether Garland even signed off on the indictment. Can you tell us? Did Garland sign off on the indictment? Like, yes or no? Well, Your Honor, regulations say that we report any major developments to the Attorney General. Okay, so you report? Pierce said earlier that an indictment could certainly be considered a major development. Well, Your Honor, I can't talk about the specifics of this case, but most of the time the rules and regulations say we do have to report these things, and so that would generally be a major development. Okay, report, or is it sign off? So is he a subordinate? Is he an inferior to Garland, or is he just telling him, hey, I'm indicting Trump? If so, where'd that power come from? Now, the judge is allowing several hours of questioning. The series of hearings will resume on Monday. Non-parties have also been allowed to argue. In one filing, attorneys for former Attorney General, and Citizen United says they've given Jack Smith a ton of power and saying that Smith's appointment severely undermines constitutional order. Before taking his role as special counsel, Smith was a prosecutor in The Hague, prosecuting war crimes for some other country, some other entity. Now, in support of Smith and his appointment as special counsel, attorneys say no, that there's a difference between principal and inferior officers, and he's fully independent. So some people are saying he's fully independent. Oh, he is? Really? So then he doesn't report to Garland. Well, we can't talk about that. Oh, so he does report to Garland. So it's political. Okay. He added that the oversight was a more hands-off approach. Okay. But Attorney General, he says, Your Honor, well, there's sufficient direction here. Okay. There is a kind of oversight from Garland, because there's regulations that govern this, which is the Reno regulations, which they just made up. They just pulled these pieces together out of nowhere. He said, Your Honor, oversight was, quote, a more hands-off approach. So there is none. But he noted the Attorney General could fire Smith if he didn't approve of his work. Okay. So he is subordinate. In his 2 federal cases, Hunter Biden is also arguing that his special counsel is unlawful. Yeah. And so, see, David Weiss, which they reference in the NBC article, was already, they say, and Hunter has a good point too. Hunter's trying to get rid of David Weiss. David Weiss was also corruptly appointed. David Weiss was already prosecuting him, and then they said, you're just a special counsel now. What? He was already prosecuting him, so how is he independent or special at all? Well, they just wanted to keep the same guy. They just put a label on him. They just stamped him on the forehead with special counsel now. Why? Because he had already rigged the first attempted non-prosecution agreement with Hunter, so they didn't want to bring in some other attorney who would wreck the plan. They just brought in Weiss. They would just give you a promotion. You've already done a good job covering this up for us, so we'll just give you the special counsel role now. So we had other people who were actually there in the courtroom. A couple links here from Anna Bauer. She is someone who reports over for Lawfare. She was there. Here's a picture. Says this is what it looks like at the scene, just to get a little flavor for it. This is the courtroom corridor, looks like. Says today, first of not 1, but 3 days of hearings. Trump's team arguing that Jack Smith was unlawfully appointed. So her phone went in, and now she came back out after the lunch break. She says, all right, Judge Cannon heard argument from Trump's defense attorney, Emil Bove. Pierce argued on behalf of the special counsel. Says Cannon grilled them both Pierce and Bove, on their respective arguments, focusing on the regulations, questions related to textual analysis of the statutes, right? Jack Smith says, this gives me power, this gives me power, and this gives me power. And the DOJ regulations under which A.G. Garland appointed Jack Smith. We've covered those many times here. Now, Cannon, at times, Times appeared skeptical of Trump's claims that Smith was unlawfully appointed, but she also did not seem entirely convinced by the special counsel's arguments to the contrary. At one point, she suggested that the special counsel's statutory analysis reflects an excessively, quote, malleable reading of the Constitution's texts. Yeah, you're not kidding on that one. She goes back in for the afternoon session. During the afternoon session, 3 attorneys who represent the amicus, the curiae, the friends of the court, will argue before Judge Cannon. They're done on the day. No ruling from the bench from Anna Bauer. And we also had a little bit from Katie Fang. She's a reporter over on MSNBC. Gave us a summary. Says Beauvais's rebuttal said something like, Your Honor, the thrust of so much of the opposition to this motion is that we have done this frequently in the past with other special counsels, and so therefore it's okay, right? Jack Smith and his argument is we've been doing this forever. So since we've done it already, we can keep doing it. Says congressional acquiescence has to fall away and the text of the relevant statutory clauses must be read together. And Beauvais said that official in the statute means an employee, not inferior officer. So Cannon says, well, why would Congress not just use the word employee? He says, well, I don't have a good answer for that one. Congress could have said employee, I guess. I wish they did that. Would have cleared this up, but they just generally don't use those phrases. Now, on rebuttal, Beauvais, he brought up special counsel's emphatic statement to Judge Chutkan in D.C. that there is no coordination with the AG on this case. He says, Your Honor, they're giving you a bunch of nonsense here today. Okay, they're not telling you whether Garland signed off on the indictment or not. And then it's internal policy. No, that's not true. They already told Judge Chutkan in their written filings, they told her that there was no coordination. They didn't say it was like offhand oversight or whatever they just told us. It's kind of an offhand approach here. We're not really, but we could fire him at any moment. They told us there was no coordination at all. So there is no oversight, not a hands-off approach. They're trying to sugarcoat it for you, Judge. Don't let them. That means that he is not subject to Garland's power, and they've created an office extra legally. Beauvais said that the special counsel's office needs to prove that they're in line with the DOJ manual and demonstrate the department's oversight. If there actually is oversight here and he actually works for Garland, what is it? Government says, no, Your Honor, we've been following all the rules of the Justice Department manual, okay? We are following the rules. Cannon asks, well, did the Attorney General have any oversight role in actually seeking the indictment? Like, that's a big decision. Was Garland involved in that? Did he review anything? Did he look at it? The judge knows, okay. This is a historic indictment. Did Garland even look at it? Or did he just pawn this off to someone else? Because you don't do that in a case like this. Government says, well, Your Honor, we can't really talk about internal policies about what happens at the DOJ, so we're not going to answer that one. Oh, okay. Now, why would there be any heartburn? I see you guys looking like a little uncomfortable, squirreling in your seats over there, government. Why is your heartburn acting up? Would you like some of these? I don't even know what you take for those. I was going to do a pharmaceutical commercial, but can't do it. Sorry, blew that one. Here, have some heartburn medication. Why can't you answer this question? Whether Garland signed off on it. Can you tell us? Your Honor, I don't want to seem like I'm hiding anything, but I am. But maintain that it would be against policy to answer that specific question. Says, Your Honor, here, have some Rolaids. Thanks, Chad. We disagree with the premise that there is no oversight for the special counsel, okay? There was oversight. We have to comply with the consultation policies and the practice. And the AG can ask questions and overrule decisions and even rescind this entire appointment in the first place. Okay, but it would require affirmative action from Merrick Garland to do that, right? He would have to step in and do something like that. Yes, he would, but that's consistent with other inferior officers, and so he is inferior. He's not actually this new thing we've created out of thin air. And even if the holding of the appointment of the special prosecutor is dicta in Nixon, because as I was explaining earlier, there was an argument that because something happened in Nixon and they didn't challenge the special counsel in that case, that the special counsel is legitimate. They say, well, okay, it's dicta, right? It wasn't actually relevant to the holding of the case, but we think the court should find it persuasive. So it's not binding on you because it wasn't even relevant in the case. So he now backtracks on that one, but we think you should still consider it. Now, at the conclusion, Cannon asked the government and the defense, file your supplements, including any statutory citations in filings, maximum 5 pages, and court was then adjourned. So big day down there in Florida. Very curious to see where this goes because Jack Smith is illegal and should be removed from this case as somebody who was unlawfully appointed. They could have just appointed any other U.S. attorney to be the special counsel. They didn't. Why? Because they wanted Jack Smith, a partisan hack from The Hague, to come over and deal with it. So we also had an interesting filing from our friends over at America First Legal. And let me just share this intro with you so we can get flavor for what's going on here. But they're joining also as amicus. This is in the Florida Classified Documents case, West Palm Beach Division. It's a nice filing, a 26-pager. We'll hit the intro because they're filing this in support of Trump's motion to fight Jack Smith's gag order. Remember, Jack came in and said, well, Trump can't say that we're trying to execute him by raiding his residence, he's not allowed to say that about us. And so they threw a big hissy fit. They say, all right, listen, Judge Cannon, we are hereby submitting this motion on behalf of the First Amendment. It says it protects Americans and all of our American liberties, saying those rights belong to all people, whether innocent or guilty, convicted or acquitted, incarcerated or free. And when the rights of the criminally accused are at stake, the First Amendment requires constant judicial vigilance to ensure those rights are not minimized. Now here, the government asks this court to restrict President Trump's ability to speak freely before this trial. But imposing a prior restraint should be undertaken with great caution and with particular attention to the framers and the Supreme Court's disdain for trampling crucial First Amendment rights, saying the government offers no evidence of the type of extreme disruption that could meet the standard for actually gagging Trump, and it can't meet the high standard for putting a prior restraint on Trump's speech, especially doing so months before Trump stands for an election against a president whose attorney general and special prosecutor is prosecuting him. Now, we know America First Legal is a nonprofit organization out there fighting for our First Amendment liberties, among other things. And so they are submitting this on behalf of Trump. They say presidential gag orders are incongruent with the First Amendment and prior restraint should not be allowed, saying we've had principles in place for a long time. James Madison urged the adoption of the Bill of Rights because it is so important. And this has been critical to the functioning of America since its inception. Now, to overcome heavy presumption against prior restraints, we have to have a narrowly defined exception, and they're only allowed in exceptional cases, which is not happening here. There's no incitement happening here, and there's no justification for it under Supreme Court case law. We know the Brandenburg case is about lawless imminent action. Is that happening here? We have no evidence of it. Now, the principle comes at a cost, and history requires vigilance when somebody's free speech rights are being taken away. The framers were concerned about preserving the democratic function of our government. They thought that a despotic government would eliminate the right to free speech, which they're trying now. And so they submit this very nice motion on behalf of President Trump. Let's see what they ask for in conclusion. They write, the court should deny the gag order signed by Judd Stone and Samuel Solario on behalf of the president, sending that one in, supporting the elimination of the gag. Now, we'll continue our coverage on this case. We'll see what else happens here. We've got new hearings happening on Monday and Tuesday to wrap up the remainder of the arguments about Jack Smith's illegal appointment and his unconstitutional thieving of money from the appropriations funds. We're going to continue to cover this, my friends. So thank you for joining us as we do. Would love it if you hit that subscribe button. Thank you for liking the like button. And thank you for watching this video, which is coming up next. We're excited to talk about Steve Bannon making an emergency appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. We'll see you over there and back here on the next one.